lunch, mate. My ass.
I'm only 4. Bonjour, Monsieur Pussycat.
Cracking toast, Robert.
Start spreading the news.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the short podcast about short films. I'm your host, and we are discussing the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. Today's episode is about the 58th year of the award at the 62nd Academy Awards, which celebrates the films of 1989. Today's guest is appearing for the 7th time, last being heard earlier this decade, talking about Tango and the nominees of 1982. Please welcome back our lovely guest, Christof. Hello, Christof.
Hello, and thank you for having me back. This is kind of a unique experience because I believe this is the first time I'm recording an episode with you before the previous episode I've been on has even been released.
Yes.
I think we never did that before.
I think there's just usually been like enough time in between where it's just like, but no, not
so
this time.
we cannot even draw from the experience of having suddenly this enormous hit episode that has been heard all around the world and led to this huge Zbigniew Rybczynski revival all over the internet.
Yes, that is definitely going to happen, and I assume the listeners out there who definitely all listened to that Tango episode and have since watched Zbig Rybczynski's. He's won all his short films and to his infamous Oscar speech over and over again. But just in this brief moment in time when the spotlight of fame hasn't hit us quite yet, we're here to talk about 1989. But before we get to that, Christof, remind us, what is your familiarity with this category?
I like this category a lot. I've seen all the available shorts, and I had the privilege of getting to choose the episodes which I'm on. And it's not a secret that this was one of 2 episodes that I was pretty much insisting to get because I always, when I talk to other people who are not familiar with the category, I usually recommend them 2 shorts to understand the breadth of the category and what can be there. One is the Crunch Bird, because it shows you how bad the category can be at its worst. And the other is Balance, the film we're going to talk about today, because I love Balance and it shows you this category at its best and the art form of the animated short at its best. So I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really hoping to do this amazing film that we're going to talk about today justice.
Yes, if I remember correctly, it's like this is probably like one of the first episode I picked a guest for, just because like whenever I pitched this this podcast idea to you, it's just like, oh, if you're gonna do that, you gotta get me on Balance, gotta get me on Crunchbird. You always lead with Balance. So but yes, let's just get right into this so we can quickly talk about Balance. This year has only 3 nominees. Our first nominee and the year's winner is, of course, Balance, directed by Christof and Wolfgang Lauenstein. This is the first and only nomination and win for the twin Lauenstein brothers. They went to schools of fine arts in Germany, though I'm not sure which one. They might have gone to different schools, or maybe one of their Wikipedia pages is wrong and they went to the same school. The latter makes more sense, but I don't know for certain. One's in Hamburg, one is somewhere else. I don't have it off the top of my head. But in either case, while in college, the 2 made today's Oscar-winning short film, with this being the 3rd time, to my knowledge, that college students fucking around with stop-motion animation earns them an Oscar win. I can't find much about the Launsteins personally, but they do go on to form an animation studio together, and to this day are still making animations, whether it be short films, commercials, or even a handful of feature films. And it's quite disappointing how little I can find about the 2, considering how deep and interesting this film is, as I'm sure we're about to dive right into. Balance, which was originally commissioned as a music video for the German band Alphaville for their Songlines project, depicts 5 pallid figures standing in a blank void atop a precariously balanced square platform. Each person casts a fishing line over the side, and one of them catches something, a heavy metal box. Through careful maneuvering of the box across the platform, they discover the box plays music. The characters become more and more obsessed with the box and fight to tilt the platform in their own favor, sliding the box towards them while also trying their best not to accidentally knock themselves, or especially the box, off the platform. Christof, start us off. What do you think of balance? Who could say?
Well, I just mentioned I love this short. This is possibly my favorite short film of all time. I'm not saying it's my favorite Oscar-winning short film. I'm not saying it's my favorite animated short film, although in fact most of my favorite short films are animated. But this is pretty much a perfect short film and my choice for the best short film of all time. It's also in particular a reason why I love animated short films, because it does something absolutely unique. It creates a world entirely of its own, with rules of its own. We see 5 men standing on a platform which is hovering apparently into absolute nothingness. And the platform reacts to their movements because it tilts one way or another depending where they're going. So it is in some way subject to the laws of gravity, although it has a center of gravity that is apparently stable. And the rules this world has are never explained to us verbally. There's no dialogue, there's no voiceover, there's not even a title card that's telling us, but still we see, just by seeing how these 5 people are moving on the platform, we pretty much instantly gather intuitively what the rules of this world here are. And after a few seconds, we understand what it's about. A very short time later, it introduces the box, and then we just see it unfold, this story of, let's say, of how these characters are increasingly struggling with greed and self-preservation because they all want to get this box. They seemingly all want to have it to themselves. And they still realize that as soon as one of them makes a step to get closer to the box, the platform is tilting one way or another, and the others have to balance it out in their way. And it's just so incredible to see this exciting thing. And there's a great economy of storytelling here because, as I said, we intuitively understand the rules of this universe. But the flip side of this is that the film only tells us exactly as much as we need to know. We're on a strict need to know basis here. We're never told where these people are coming from, why they are here, whether this is the only world or there are other worlds. We don't know where they poop and where they get their food from. We don't know if there are women in this world as well. We are only being told what matters. So this particular story that is being told is understandable for us. And I find it endlessly fascinating to watch this one premise being told within 8 minutes. This story, it's getting more and more exciting as it goes on because these characters are getting ever more greedy, and their sense of self-preservation kicks in later and later as they're trying to get to the box. And it ends on this perfect final image that just makes this absolute perfection. This is one of the best films of any length ever made.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like you are, I consider you like the foremost expert on this film just because you love it so much. You've seen it quite a lot. And so I find it hard to really add anything. It's like I was thinking of things to say and then you would just say them already. But yes, this is such a fantastic short film. And it's like I've mentioned before, like short films that would be perfect to show in like a film school and like just use them to analyze short film making. And I think this is one of the most perfect examples of that. Like it is such a perfect film to study and just look at just how each of the different characters interact with each other, how this wordless story just builds its own kind of plot without just just purely through actions. And it's just like, and as you mentioned, it's just like you could ask questions like where these people come from, why do they fish off the side of this platform, and why is the box there? But it's just like, that doesn't matter. That we are asked merely just to accept this reality and follow them with it through the story that they're telling, and then asked to simply think and take something from it. It just just the not so similarly as the way that the characters want to take the box, but just, meet the film on its level. Well, and it's such a beautiful film too. Like, let's talk a little bit about like the visual style, like this emptiness that we find ourselves in, like this blank void, like this. It's brutalist, I think, is the proper term for it. It's just very striking in terms of its visual style, and I love these like these characters that we have here. They're dressed in these kind of tattered clothing. They each have numbers on them, almost like they're prisoners of this world that they're in, and just kind of forced to be here. Maybe that's something. It's like, it just maybe think of it on like a metatextual level. Well, just like how these are characters that are forced to be in this film to tell this story. He has just like, I could just ramble on and on about different ways you could interpret this movie. It's like there's very clearly like some kind of like class metaphors that you could take from this about like communism and things like that. There's just so much that you can take from this, and who knows how much was even intended by the Lowenstein brothers. But it's just like, that is just the true mark of the greatness of the short, the fact that you can take so much from it. It doesn't matter how much was intended, but it's just such a rich film. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you mentioned the numbers, these aren't 5 consecutive numbers. They aren't 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have 23 and 51 and 75, and I can't tell you the other 2 from the top of my head. So we're starting, were there maybe 75 characters to begin with, and we're just joining them at a very late stage when all others have dropped off the platform already? Or have just these 5 been assigned random numbers? So even that is an interesting question that wouldn't be there if there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Are there other platforms even?
Are there other platforms? We're just seeing this one, and we just see it at one point. I mean, it's also interesting how the platform gets introduced. It's not the first image that we see. The first image that we see is just one of the guys that we see from the waist up. And then it cuts to all 5 of them that we see standing. But even in that frame, we have no idea that they are on a hovering platform. We just see them standing there. One of them makes a move, and suddenly the ground tilts, and the other 2 are counterbalancing his move. And just in the next frame, we suddenly see a corner of the platform. And only in the shot after that, we actually see that there is an edge, and that this is literally a platform hovering in midair. So it slowly establishes this. So it gets us used to the idea of the ground they're standing on reacting to their movements before it really shows us that it literally is this kind of platform. And it's an almost monastic visual design, but it fits so well to this really reduced kind of way, of this reduced kind of information that we're getting to understand this. When you mention the visual design, I think we'll also have to mention the sound design, because this is quite integral in why it works so well. The platform is always creaking whenever it tilts one way or another. There's this muffled music that comes out of the box. The sound design in which these ambient noises are the dominant thing that you hear are quite important for the atmosphere. And in a strange way, I was reminded of Das Boot, which has nothing to do with this. It's completely different, but also a film of an entirely different length, several hours long, which is also very much defined by the sound design, and where the surroundings of what we're hearing is so important to the way this entire film feels. And I think that's just as important as the visual design and how the effect of this film is.
Mm-hmm. And they're both directed by guys named Wolfgang. Just a fun fact out there.
Yeah. German films made by guys named Wolfgang.
But yes, another thing.
Also,
You go ahead.
Well, what I find interesting, I mean, you can also analyze it on a story level. It's because these guys have numbers on the back, you can observe them individually, so they're not completely interchangeable. And what I find interesting about this unfolds, because as the plot unfolds, we see all of them trying to get to the box and having to themselves and manipulating the platform in a way to get closer to the box, while others are trying to counterbalance it. And over time, this is a bit of a spoiler, but hey, this is 7 minutes long. You can stop it here and watch it now. It's so great. Over time, these characters are either falling off the platform or getting pushed off the platform. So there are fewer of them as it goes on. And I find it interesting, if you have a look, it's not that there's one mischievous guy who's ruining for everybody else. It's not like there's one greedy person who wants to hog the box and everyone else is just trying to balance it out. It's their roles change. Every single one of them is caught in this constant struggle between greed and self-preservation, in between trying to get the box and trying not to get everyone on the platform killed, because, well, I assume they are falling to their death. We're not knowing where they're falling to. They're not even screaming when they're falling off the box. There are no sounds coming from them. They obviously try to avoid falling off the box, so that's probably why we assume they're falling to the death. Who knows, maybe it's just a game show and the winner of them in the end gets to keep the box, and that's why they're trying to keep it on the platform. Who knows? As I said, we only are told the rules that we need to know, and we don't really need to know why they want to stay on the platform. It's just the assumption that they're dying when they're falling into the abyss. So it's really every one of them getting greedy and wanting this box, which does nothing except play music. There's nothing. It's not like there's food in it or gold or anything else of value. It's just the music that it's playing. I assume maybe not loud enough for everyone to hear it all over the platform, but nothing would prevent them from putting the box into the middle of the platform and then just gathering around it to hear it. So there's also no real reason for one of them to hog it all by himself. They could share it without losing anything about the value they're getting from it. So it's just, and as they are trying to keep the platform in balance while getting closer to the box, they're shifting more and more, and there's more and more movement as the film goes on. It's 7 minutes long. There's not many different objects and subjects that are interacting with each other, but it's interesting to watch until the very end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like for a film that's only 7 minutes, it's like it has more like to it, like in terms of just like just depth to it than many feature length, any great feature length films even have in their whole runtime. It's a truly marvelous thing, and one of my favorite aspects of this film, first of all, it's the way just that, like, as each movement happens that you see the different characters try to counterbalance it. It's like you see one person make one step like this way, and then you hear the scuttle of like the other four who are trying to just counterbalance to make sure everything's still balanced. And it's like you can tell that they've been here a while. They know how everything balances out. They can tell just by one step of one person. It's like, oh, that means we all need to move this way. Like this is something that they've learned to do. Like it's second nature to them. But then it's also just they have to kind of try and fight against it if they want to get that box. They want like one of my favorite moments of the short is when there's one person next to the box, and then there's the group of four, and then one of the group of four just makes a step forward.
Yes.
The platform starts tilting where the box is going to fall off the thing, and so the guy who's next to the box, he has to step forward to make sure that the box doesn't fall off. And then the first guy makes another step forward. And then so he has to, and it's like he's making his own play for the box. And it's like he knows that the other four aren't going to let that box fall off the platform. And so the only way to let him go forward is to let him, or the only way to keep the box on is to just let him get to the box. But of course, when they meet in the middle, they find a way to get him back to the other side. But yeah, just the audacity of that first step is just, it is just such a big moment. It's like the turning point of the whole short when things start to really get out of control in regards to everybody fighting for the box. And I also just really love the guy who is just sitting on the box in like the final minute or two of the short film. Like he's just sliding around as everybody else is trying to get it. It's just like it's great. It has a sense of humor too, like with that one guy.
Yeah. I mean, like, he's basically murdering some of these guys. I mean, some of those fallings or pushings off the platform are at least half accidental, but there are at least two other characters that he is intentionally killing by, or at least intentionally shoving off the platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
also one of them spends quite some time just clinging to the platform. He's falling off it, but just gets to grab the edge of the platform and it's just hanging there while the other guys on the platform keep fighting to keep it in balance. And so him hanging on this side of the platform is and not being able to move around and help in the equilibrium of the entire thing is another element that the other characters have to keep in mind when they are trying to not tilt over completely.
Mm-hmm. One other thing is just like, if there is one flaw to this film, it's that I think maybe the balancing physics are a bit off in terms, especially when it comes to that
How
one guy.
dare you?
Especially when it comes to that one guy who is hanging off the edge, because you have the two guys who are there, and they're both on that edge of the platform, and the box is on the other side. And when he kicks the guy off, it still remains perfectly balanced at the end, and even though it's like it lost half the weight that was on that side. But again, that's just nitpicking.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, but it's an interesting point actually, because what I thought upon this rewatch, and I'm not exactly sure, is my impression this time watching around is that the box might be getting heavier as the short goes on, so that it's increasingly more of a factor in how much it influences the weight of the platform. And maybe it's just me making it up, but it was a thought that came to me that I had the impression that myself that the weight of the box is not constant throughout the entire thing. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're onto something there.
Yeah.
And I'll just decide to give it as an additional credit to the film to introduce this additional element of the weight of the box, because other than that, I think the physics and the gravity are fairly sound in the way the other characters counterbalance the movements of one of the characters. So it feels true.
Yeah. I'm also thinking like there is like this kind of ties back to the one theory I said earlier about how like it is about like the very act of making the film, how it's like the filmmakers put them there, imprison them in this platform, and it's like maybe it's meant that the balance of the platform itself can be controlled. And it's just like maybe it's not even like a, a loose hanging platform, but rather it is the characters are meant to think it is, but really it is all just being uh controlled by someone. So it's just like I don't know. This is probably just cuckoo bananas theories, but it's just something I thought to throw out there.
It's fascinating enough that it invites this sort of speculation, and that you want to speculate about it, and that you don't just shrug it off and think, next film, because it just introduce it. It feels like it is saying some things about basic human needs or basic human behavior, because these are basically faceless characters standing on a platform, but the way they behave feels profoundly human, like it's tapping into something that's very human, and not something that is particularly good about humanity, but about greed and about wanting something all for yourself, even although you could share it without any consequences for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So this tapping into these kinds of thinking or behaving is what this makes stand out. It's not just there to entertain, but you feel like there's something really of substance here, and it doesn't spell it out. You could just enjoy it as an interesting and exciting film about 5 characters on a platform scheming against each other, but you can also try to get to the bottom of what it wants to say about humanity or about human behavior.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So this is kind of off topic, but have do you know of the film Superstar, the Karen Carpenter story is like Todd Haynes' first film?
Yeah, of course I do. It's the one with the Barbie dolls.
Yes. I had an idea to just like because the very plain faces of these characters, how they have very little like facial reaction, just made me think that like you could remake this film with Barbie dolls in the stand-in of each of the 5 characters. And I don't know if that's going to change any of the meaning at all, but I think it would be funny to have like the Barbie aesthetic in the like I'm not sure if it'd be better to have them still in the same like blank void, or maybe you make the whole thing like hot pink or whatever and have the 5 Barbie dolls in there. Or
I
like
mean, it would be interesting alone to have female characters suddenly there, because I think that I don't know. I just have to expect that the vibe would be somewhat different if it were women who were fighting over the box rather than men.
mhm. Maybe it's kind of that whole the there's that famous theory about how like you couldn't really make like the Lord of the Flies with female characters just because there's like theories about how like women are just raised differently, they wouldn't react like this in this scenario or whatever, or it's a big debate about that story. So maybe you couldn't make balance with Barbie dolls.
Well, just like you probably couldn't do Mean Girls with boys, at least straight boys. I could
Okay,
totally
we
see a
need to
remake
make
of
it
Mean Girls
lesbian
with
Barbie
gay
dolls and it'll be
characters.
okay.
Are there butch Barbies?
I mean, there should be if there's not already.
Yeah, there definitely should be. So, but that's interesting, and I like the idea of a Barbie version with this, and it 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 would be interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to see that. I mean, it couldn't. I don't think it could be better than this. Then I can see a way to make this actually really better and more exciting. But it would be an interesting version of this.
Yeah.
Greta Gerwig, if you're listening to this, And we know that you are. Do something.
Yeah, Greta Gerwig hopped on after the big Brzezinski blow up that happened after your last episode. Now she's a big fan. She went back and listened to all the episodes.
Yeah, and she shares our hatred for Minnie Mouse. That's
Yes.
great.
Yes.
People are burning Minnie Mouse dolls all over the world. And I approve that.
And they have a newfound appreciation of Daisy Duck that wasn't there before.
And of course, Pluto. We all love Pluto, and Pluto
yes.
is finally recognized as the greatest Disney character.
Yeah, and Disney has reshaped their main trio to be Donald, Goofy, and Pluto rather than the unnamed mouse, I'll say.
Yeah. And whenever Mickey mistreats Pluto, we hear a voice saying, "Bad mouse, bad mouse."
We get a catharsis kind of short film where it's just like Pluto just absolutely destroys Mickey. He has this after 100 years of just awful treatment, it's just Pluto finally gets his revenge.
Awful treatment, even although he's such a loyal character. To find anyone who's more loyal than Pluto despite being so badly treated by the mouse that owns him and his stupid girlfriend.
Yes. This is the world that will come to pass after the release of this big Brzezinski episode, the Tango episode of this podcast.
Yeah.
All thanks to Greta Gerwig.
Yeah, thank you, Greta. We knew we could count on you.
Yeah, thank you, Greta. I'm very excited to see Barbie in theaters this July 21st. Or, well, I guess by the time this episode comes out, it will have already been released, and I will have already seen it probably multiple times.
Woohoo!
But, yay! But yeah, anything else you'd like to say about Balance? Any unsaid thoughts in that mind of yours?
I think I've touched upon the things and the notes I've taken here. Maybe we're coming back to Balance at one point or another during our discussion today, because I'm not sure we'll have to say just as much about the other two shorts that are here. But I guess we'll have to talk about them as well.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just say this now. If you want to just end this episode early, we won't be mad, because these other two shorts, not to spoil our rankings at the end, but they're just not on the level of Balance. But
in fairness, nothing is. Oh, few things are.
Yeah, they're not bad or anything. They're not awful. But if you are running late to something, it's you need to get out of your house and go on your way, whatever. Or and it's just you want to end an episode early, you can just go. You can come back later and listen to the rest of this if you really need to. But really,
in all honesty, if I had a choice between listening to the two of us talk about The Cow and the Hill Farm and watching Balance, I would watch Balance.
Mm-hmm. I would also choose to watch Balance. I wish this lineup was just Balance 3 times. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 times even, because that is technically allowed.
Agreed. Oh, maybe Balance 4 times and that Balance Barbie movie once.
Yes. That somehow came out in the same year. We go back in time and make that movie and get it nominated in the same year.
Yeah. And Greta Gerwig will be very surprised to be a Best Animated Short Film nominee in 1989. When she was how old? 6, something like that. But
hold on. I'm gonna look up her age. How old is she? She was 6. You were right. Damn. I didn't know you knew Greta Gerwig's age.
I just guessed she would have been roughly my age. So that's where I was guessing. Maybe a bit younger than me.
Yeah. Greta Gerwig's born on August 4th, 1983. And this episode...
A bit more than a year younger than me, okay.
Yeah, so she her birthday was a month ago by the time this podcast comes out. So happy birthday, Greta Gerwig. I'm not sure you expected
Happy
me.
birthday, Greta, and thank you for listening to us
Thank you for listening.
and making us so popular.
And yes, and if you would like to come onto an episode, please just DM me. I would be happy to have you on, maybe to talk about I don't know, maybe Paperman. I think you really love Paperman, or maybe The House of Small Cubes. There's a lot of good episodes. I'd love to like introduce you to some great short films, or even after Best Animated Short category. I could just, or you can talk about your favorite short films. There's lots of possibilities. I just let me know. We can talk this out.
You can also make a short film or two and then basically do an introductory podcast. So you're launching your short films on this podcast.
Yes. That that'd be hilarious. It's like that'd be great. But yes, let's not delay it any further. So if you're listening, you're allowed to stop now. But our second nominee is The Cow, directed by Alexander Petrov. This is Petrov's first Oscar nomination, and he is perhaps the most famous person to use the paint on glass animation medium, mainly for another film he will be nominated for a decade from now. But as of this point in time, he is a mere Russian animator born in Yaroslavl and studied at Russia's most prestigious film schools, which I will name as their acronyms, the VGIK and the HCFDS. It was at the second film school where he made The Cow. He was having trouble coming up with an idea for a film, and it was his wife who spurred an idea, telling him about a book where a cow's life flashes before its eyes as it's about to be slaughtered. He wanted to animate a film about the cow's vision, and while working on this, he was led to Andrei Platonov's story, The Cow, and the rest is history. The cow starts with the birth of a calf. When the calf grows enough, it is sold to be butchered, leaving the calf's mother, our titular cow, distraught. The young son of the family who owns the cow tries his best to comfort it, only for it to escape. There's a brief fantasy sequence which eventually reveals that the cow was hit by a train. This is the great joy of the Russians that we are so fond of. Movies that just about cows dying. So what I thought about this is, first, it's a really miserable movie. It just makes you feel sad throughout. It is not shot, but just made in a way that like keeps a lot of the light low. It's just like a lot of frames I just have like one single light source, like the lantern that the boy's carrying, and maybe the light on his face from and it's just like, it's a very dour movie. However, I do really appreciate like first the artistry and the craft that is involved in animating like oil on glass. It's an incredibly difficult animation process, and for it to look this good takes so much work. But also, while it is super depressing, and usually it's like Christof and I agree that like oftentimes when the Academy goes for something that is so just miserable through and through, that it just becomes so awful to sit through. But I think this film, there's something about it that feels more earned than a lot of those like live action short winners that really just ruin the category. But yeah, maybe it's the fact that there's a bit of there's a bit of lightheartedness, or a bit of like whimsy, perhaps that is in that like fantasy sequence after the cow first escapes. It's, I don't know, I can't really explain it, but I didn't hate this the way I hate something like Helium, that live action short winner from 2014, 2012, I think it was. But yeah, I thought this was a very good movie, but I do not want to watch it again. And it's kind of hard to talk about because it is just so miserable. Christoph, I'm subjecting you to talking about this. What do you think?
I mean, Helium is maybe not just the greatest comparison, because Helium is a film about a little boy dying from, we won't tell you what, but it's probably cancer. Whereas this is a film about a boy who loves his parents' cow, and then the cow dies. And it's a great cow. The cow has given to all of us milk, sun, meat, skin, entrails, and bones. But it's a cow, so it's you're right, it's miserable. Much of it is also from the way that it's told within sepia tones, which tends to look a bit drab. I also wonder, two of the three films we're talking about have absolutely no dialogue at all, and the cow has a bit of dialogue which is almost incidental, and then a closing monologue at the end which is hammering the point home. And I would almost say that the cow would have been a better film if it was wordless as well and just relied on images.
Mhm.
I appreciate the craft that went in it. I have to say, having seen several of Alexander Petrov's films, the greatest asset his films have are their gorgeous hand-painted animation. Also, this animated style, as you say, it's drawing on glass, so it almost feels a bit like has a bit of a stained glass window feeling, this animation, which is also helped by the fact that there usually aren't very smooth transitions from one frame to the next, but almost a bit jumpy in a flip book kind of way, how the characters are moving. And this gorgeous look feels a bit muddled by the sepia tones here, because I think no one ever has described something in sepia as looking gorgeous. So it's a drab film. It's well made. It's hammering its point home a bit too much. I just can't find it in me to really enjoy it. So all I can do is appreciate it for what it is. And as you said, you don't want to watch this again. I think I have rewatched it. I've watched it one time when I was watching the nominees. I've rewatched it yesterday and today in preparation for this podcast. I don't think I need to rewatch this anytime soon because, well, let's just say it's technically excellent, but it makes me feel things I don't really want to feel while watching an animated short film. You can do this in live action. You can do this in documentary short. Please let animated short be joyful or interesting or exciting or anything else but drab.
Mm-hmm. It is just a film that is not. It's not fun. It is intentionally depressing, and it's like it succeeds in what it's trying to do, but also maybe it's just today specifically, or maybe no one's ever in the mood for a film about cow death, multiple cow death. But it's just it's like I can't say it's bad, but also it's just I don't want to watch this again or ever. It's just, and it's not even a particularly rewarding, I think. It's not like I I keep comparing it to films with, like, people death. It's like it feels bad to like compare this to Schindler's List, but it's just like that's a film that has while it is a very harrowing film, it's very hard to sit through, but at least by the end of it you feel more that it's just like I am better because I have seen this. It's good that I know that this happened. I know that I know about the pain of the world and whatever. But it's just like with this, it's just like, yeah, this is just something that happens, and it's just like, yeah, it sucks. And it's just like it's a misery that is well made, but also it's just like, yeah, that's just how the world goes sometimes.
Yeah, and it's secondhand misery as well, because unlike I was trying to think of films about death of animals or about focusing on the suffering of animals like Oasa, Balthazar, or Io, but these are told from the perspective of the animals, whereas this film is told from the perspective of a little boy who loves the cow. So it's not even the misery of the cow dying, but it's the misery of the boy who loves a cow and the cow is dying.
Yeah, and the boy doesn't even actually seem that sad. It's just like, and like especially with the ending narration, which I do actually want to talk about, because first of all, you've got this movie that like tells like you were saying before, it's mostly just incidental dialogue, with most of it just being told through visual storytelling. Um, and then it's just like you get to the ending, it's like, wow, the cow's dead. That sucks. And then you get this ending monologue where the boy just explains what everything that happened in the movie to you. And it's like, okay, thanks. I I'm not sure I really needed this, but okay, thank you for telling me that you're happy that you got to eat the cow and drink its milk and everything.
And whatever you did with the entrails and the bones, I didn't really want to know, but thank you for telling me you used them as well.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, it's like it feels like a film that's trying to be sad about, cow. Oh, but also it the boy isn't that sad. And while I was watching it, um I was thinking about Don Bluth's The Small One, well, for some reason, which is like, if you don't know, it's like this short film made by Disney in the 70s. It's about this, it's kind of a Christmas movie. I think there's like Jesus at one point, but it's just about this boy who has to sell his beloved donkey friend. And it's just like the whole short film is just the boy is sad that he has to sell his donkey, and he has to go around with his donkey thinking about like, oh, nobody wants to buy his stupid donkey, but he still has to sell it. And it's just so annoying and miserable, and I hate it. It's like a lot of Don Bluth's movies are like that, just so miserable. Um, but yeah, and it's just like in comparing that to the cow, it's like maybe I like the cow more because while it is like showing me things that I am like, emotionally affected by, it doesn't really beat you over the head with its misery, because like I was saying, it's like the boy in the cow is not sad. He or at least he's not that sad. And it's meanwhile with something like the small one, he is just so miserable this whole time. He's pretty much like nonstop crying and yelling and moaning and everything. And he's just like, shut up already. Hey, but it's just like the cow is more it lets you feel the way that you are going to feel. Well, which yeah, thinking about it, maybe that's why I have a more of appreciation for the cow than I do something like that, or other films that like really rely on the misery of its main characters.
Yeah. I think we should move on from the film set on a farm to talk about the other film set on a farm, don't you?
Yeah, you don't have anything else you have to say about the cow who got hit by the train?
Nothing.
All right. So our third and final nominee is The Hill Farm, directed by Mark Baker. This is Baker's first nomination, and he is best known as the co-creator of Peppa Pig. Uh, and his story is much like the previous two nominees today. Baker made this film while a student at film school. In this case, it's National Film and Television School in London, having previously studied at the West Surrey College of Art and Design, and beginning his animation career working with 8mm film as a young child. Baker created the Hill Farm over a 3-year period, and I hate how often I have to cite things from websites that are no longer up and running. On an older version of the website for his production company, Astley Baker Davies, there's this incredibly detailed account about his process of making the Hill Farm, from animating directly onto the cells without doing rough sketches first, the process of approaching a fellow student to do the score, and how they argued over a single note of the music. That's the only thing they disagreed on. To screening the film at the Annecy Film Festival and being scared that the audience was going to boo his film for being 18 minutes long. Uh, and they didn't, but I think they should have. Spoilers. It's a great read, but sadly only accessible through the Wayback Machine, and it is far too long to fully describe the text of his story making this film. But in any case, The Hill Farm is about life on a farm on a hill, I guess. They tend to their animals, but things go awry when first their well stops pumping water, and worse, some tourists and hunters are being annoying and stupid. Christof, what did you think of our final nominee?
Well, you mentioned that it's 8 minutes long. It's about as long as the other two combined. And it's kind of like with feature films that are 150 minutes long. It's not always a problem. There are films that are absolutely ideal for this length, but more often than not, it's just a sign of a filmmaker maybe not knowing what to edit out and what not to throw at the audience, because there is so much shit happening here. There's so much shit being thrown at the audience. It's almost, in a way, it's the opposite of balance. Whereas in balance, the audience is on a strict need-to-know basis, and we're only being told details that we need to gather to make sense of what is happening. The Hill Farm is just throwing scenes and characters and animals and whatnot at us. And for the first 10 minutes or so, we have absolutely no idea where this entire thing is supposed to be going. It's we see animals, we see birds, there's a bear all of a sudden, and then the bear is gone again, and we see the farmer and his wife and his farmhand. By the way, you described this film entirely wrong. You said it's about a farm on a hill. It's a farm on two hills, isn't it? Because the farmhand is living in a tiny little house on a second hill. Or maybe
The
maybe
farm
not.
among the hills, let's say.
Something like that. Yeah. As I said, maybe a look behind the scenes. When I'm recording the episodes with you, they're usually at 8 a.m. on my Sunday morning, which is a great time for me. And usually I'm rewatching all the films on Saturday, and I'm taking notes. And then I'm rewatching all the films again on Sunday just before recording. And when I've been watching The Hill Farm yesterday, I suddenly checked out mentally when nothing had happened about 10 minutes in. And my mind kept wandering to other things. And when I was looking back at my screen, I suddenly saw a man shooting at birds. And I had no idea how we went there and what happened. So suddenly we're in this situation. But I just couldn't be bothered to rewind it to find out. I just rewatched it today, very eager to see the story behind these hunters. And there's not much of a story to them. They just appear out of nowhere. They appear out of nowhere, hunting foxes and then shooting at the birds. They don't get introduced. It just happens all of a sudden after we've been sitting through almost 10 minutes of farm things happening and tourists suddenly popping up. So there is no way. This is not tied together as it should be. I have a feeling there's a great little film inside all of this, but it's not really there. That being said, there are individual moments here that are really funny. There's a moment when the tourists first arrive and they're making photos of everything. I believe one of them is filming, if I'm interpreting the sound design correctly, whereas the others are shooting photos. And the farmer's wife is just taking a chicken and killing it in front of the tourist's eyes and then plucking its feathers. And the one tourist with a camera is just fainting. I found that hilarious. It's such a funny moment. There are moments with a bear and a hunter which are quite funny. There are little nuggets of comedic genius here that are absolutely enjoyable. And I just wish they were tied together more clearly by someone who maybe had more of a sense how to tell the story than just throwing stuff at the audience. The other thing I liked was the animation, let's say the animation grew on me, because the animation is a bit simplistic. The barn looks like it had been drawn by a 3-year-old. The sheeps are white rectangles with an all black head and stick legs. There's a pig that's almost as tall as a woman, but it all kind of works and it feels kind of coherent together. And I'm not familiar with Peppa Pig, which I find impossible to pronounce without an Italian accent because of White Lotus. I mean,
um,
also sidebar, I've been watching 2 films with Monica Vitti since I watched The White Lotus season 2, and both times when her name popped up in the opening credits, I was shouting out Peppa Pig. And I know I should probably never watch a Monica Vitti film in a cinema because I don't know if I could contain myself and not shout Peppa Pig when her name is on the credits, because I'm this strange sometimes. Um, but I've never seen an episode of Peppa Pig, but I believe there's also the just from the character design there, I believe this kind of almost childlike animation style seems to be a through line with Mark Baker that he is still doing there. So this I like this animation style more than I thought I would. So there are a lot of individual nuggets here that I really enjoyed, and which make me believe that if this was a 9-minute short, if this was half as long, and much of the shit that we don't need would be just thrown out, I would probably love this. But like this, it's just individual moments I adore in a sea of meh.
mhm. I agree with a lot of your points here. It is very much an overlong film. There are some good bits. Like I also really enjoyed the thing with the where she breaks chicken's necks in front of wreck, broke the chicken's neck in front of the cameraman. And it's just like there is something here. There's something that could have been. And if it was just shorter and quicker paced, is just and like you said at the start of your thoughts on this film, that it's like throwing a lot at you. And it's like it isn't really. It is taking things at such a slow pace. It is letting you sit with all these different scenes that are just nothing happening. And it's just like it is just going on and on. And it's just like I get that some of these things are supposed to be funny, but they just don't end up being so because it's just so mellow in a sense. It's just like it doesn't it's just not funny. That's the whole thing there. And it's just like and as I mentioned, it's like all 3 of today's nominees are student films, really. They're films made by like filmmakers who, while they were at film school, were making their animated films. And this is the only one where it really does feel like a student film here. It like this absolutely looks and feels like a person who is learning how to make a film. And it's like that's fine. Student films are supposed to be bad. You're supposed to do you're supposed to work out the kinks before you get put onto a massive stage. And if this was just a student film, like yeah, I could forgive a lot of the flaws with it. But this is a film that uh it won the Grand Prix at the Annecy Film Festival. They've loved it there. They didn't boo or hiss at Mark Baker like he assumed they would. But and this was of course nominated for best animated short film, and putting this in the same lineup as Balance and fucking Alexander Petrov, it's just like this pales so much in comparison. And it's just like it's just a miserable thing. And it's like while you pointed out how you're recording this at 8 a.m. You and it's just like and you watch these films in the morning and also yesterday. It is currently midnight for me. And I just and tonight I wrote the script for this episode and I watched the films. I wrote out the plot descriptions, and it's just like it's been a long day for me. And ending the watches with the like we have Balance. I watched them in the order that I presented them here. And so it's like you start off with Balance. Great film. It is just everything you want in a short film. And then you go to The Cow, which is a beautiful short film. Oh, and it's like you said, no one would ever describe something sepia tone as gorgeous. I'm describing The Cow as gorgeous. I think it is a beautiful film. Oh, and it's just like, but it's so miserable. It just really brings you down. And then when you end this with The Hill Farm, which is 18 minutes long, and it is just so slow, and it is just, and the only time things happen are one at the very end when you get the big storm and everything. There's actually something going on there, and then before that, it's just occasional moments of light comedy. It's just like I want to die. It is just, and just like I when I did my, so I have a ranking of all the animated short nominees, and it's just like when I did my ranking, it's like I was able to hold back like some of my feelings that are really just because of the moment I'm in, and it's just like I was it is a high 2.5 as a film, but it's just like it is not the film for me right now. It is not something that I'm in the mood for right now. It is just, it's nothing. That's what it is. It's nothing. I'm sorry, Mr. Baker. You seem nice, and it's just like, and he gets 3 Oscar nominations. I'm not much of a fan of any of them. Uh, the Village is even the Village is even worse than this one, I think. And then Jolly Roger is so forgettable. The only thing I remember about it is that I'm pretty sure it's set on a pirate ship. And I think that's the one that's most similar to Peppa Pig, or Peppa Pig, as you're saying it. I never watched White Lotus, but I have seen that clip on Twitter a bunch because I have friends who watch like White Lotus, including Ronaldo, our beloved friend and frequent podcast guest. I'm rambling. That's all that there is.
Yeah, in a way, you're rambling like the short is rambling.
Yeah.
And I clearly like it more than you do because, well, I like I had it originally on 2.5 stars, and I slightly bumped the rating up to 3 because these individual moments were enough for me to make me appreciate it, and there's just something there. You see that there's something there
There is something there.
by someone who clearly hasn't honed his skills yet and would still need to learn to be more precise with what he's doing. But there's something there that I find enjoyable, and so it's flawed, no doubt, but I still kind of like that it's here because I had moments which I like. Also, like the storm at the end, which is it's basically everyone is running away from the bear, which has been poked by the tourists and who then swallows a hunter and spits him back out again. But the bear goes away as soon as it's starting to rain because apparently this bear comes from the same planet as the aliens and signs, and water isn't good for him. So also there are other moments. There was a previous moment which I took down in my notes there where the farmer's wife goes to the cow, and the cow is taking a mouthful or 2 mouthfuls of water from the bucket, and then she just takes the same bucket and milks the cow into this bucket where there still must be a lot of water inside, which is just kind of strange. I don't know why. Somehow this tickled me. It's just little moments, little nuggets of funny moments which are there, but which just aren't tied together as they should be. So that's the farm hill for you, the hill farm.
Yes, it's the Hill Farm. I'll say there are some more things I did like about this, and you were mentioning how the crude art style. I thought that really worked. I think that it is visually appealing. It's visually interesting, and it's just like it's a it's part of like this whole short is very crude. Like I was saying, it's very clearly a student film, and the art style is where I think the crudeness of it just really works. And it's just like it almost reminds me of like it's kind of similar to like cave paintings or something. The way the characters are so like boxy and just like the vague idea of a chicken or a cow or a pig or whatever. And it's just like, and there are like these really quiet moments where it isn't it trying to be funny or anything? Like the opening shot, or maybe not the opening shot, but like the opening moment where I guess also the ending moment where the husband and the wife are in just sleeping in bed together. They're just fast asleep, and we see like this nice shot above them in their room as they're there together. And that is just such a beautiful thing there. And it's just like I wish more of the short, one more of the short was just like wasn't trying to be funny. It was just quiet, beautiful moments. And also, I think there's some untapped potential in the relationship between the husband and wife farmer, and also the farmhand or maybe their son. I'm not sure. Uh, I love how big he is.
He's so huge.
He is massive, and he
He's
is
as huge as the barn that he lives in.
yes. He sticks his head out of the little top window and stuff. It is God, it's such good character design. Like,
He barely fits inside the house he's living in.
and it's like when it gets knocked over in the store and he like rebuilds it and puts like the wall back in as he's like goes back in. It's it's funny. It is good. That part's good. I I just wish that so this could have been a great 8-minute film. And you could do that by first just get rid of the hunters. They are useless to the story. We get everything we need out of them from the tourists that are there. And the tourists are much funnier than the hunters are. Hunters are just so annoying and I hate them.
Yeah, and
Um
the tourists are reacting to what they're seeing. I mean, like the guy who's fainting, and whereas the hunters are just shooting at animals and then running away from the bear. So there's not really much to the hunters. The tourists are fun. Also, they should be introduced a lot earlier. If you keep the hunters, get them in earlier. If you keep, keep the tourists, definitely get them in earlier.
yeah. And it's just like just quicken up the pacing a little bit. It's
You
just like
don't need that much time to tell us what life on a farm is like. We've seen enough movies about farms to know what a farm looks like. We've seen that Best Actress lineup where 3 of the women are working on farms.
yes. Oh yes. Farm year. How could I forget? What was that? 1984? God.
I
What a
think it's 1984, yes.
it's truly 1984 at the Oscars. Women are forced to be on farms. Uh
So we know what life on a farm is like. We don't need, I don't know, 10 minutes of you setting up how these farmers are feeding their animals.
Exactly. And it's just like I know there's some jokes in there about like how like the pig just eats all its food in one bite and how the chickens are always hungry no matter how much food the farmers give them or whatever. But it's just like speed it up. Come on. It's yeah.
Also, I'm a bit disappointed that the pig doesn't look like Peppa Pig at all. It's more like a hippo, at least from its size.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't say hippo like Daisy May Cooper there.
A hippo! It's a hippo! I'm livid! I hate you more than my husband! A hippo! Look at this tail! Only elephants and hippos have such a tail!
That was great. That really livened up this episode. And I'm sad that the people who stopped listening after the ballot after balance won't get to hear that. but
Yeah.
it made me happy.
And Owen Ronaldo, if you're puzzled right now, just ask us. We'll explain to you.
Just please watch Taskmaster. Watch the episode called Hippopotamus. See, it's series 10. Uh, Even though she doesn't ever say the word hippopotamus, it's just
Yeah, that's annoying. It's annoying if the title of Taskmaster is a word that doesn't occur, that isn't said once in the entire episode. This should not happen.
Mhm. It's like you just had to call it hippo, not hippopotamus. But
Hippo,
I'm wondering if maybe
hippo, and
like
in all caps. Hippo in all caps.
mhm. I'm wondering if maybe like she said hippopotamus like one, or maybe it's like the card said hippopotamus or whatever.
That probably, yeah, that could
But it's
be
just
it.
like, but they don't show like when Alex says hippopotamus or whatever. So it's not like, yeah,
Yeah, because she is shouting it a lot, so Alex doesn't need to say hippopotamus.
exactly. Um, but yeah, I love Taskmaster. Taskmaster is great. Taskmaster is better than 2 out of 3 of these nominees. It's close to balance. I'm not quite sure which one I prefer more, but it's definitely better than 2 out of 3 of these.
Yes, agreed.
Um, Anything else you'd like to say about the Farm Hill?
I think I have said more about the Farm Hill than I thought I could say about it.
Yeah, I'm surprised how many ways we can say this film is overlong and boring.
Yeah, you could almost say we're by now overlong and boring in saying how overlong and boring it is.
Yeah, I guess we have gone probably over an hour at this point. So let's just move on. And now that we've gone through and talked about these 3 nominees, let's rank them all. Christoph, let's just run through this quickly. I think we all know what's going to happen. What's your number 3?
I'm not even sure we know what's going to happen because just before I rewatched all 3 of them today, as I was going into it and before I rewatched all today, I was very clear about my ranking. It's probably the same ranking than you had. But as I said, this rewatch today of the Farm Hill Farm, whatever, I found a lot to appreciate in it. It's clearly the most flawed of the 3, whereas the cow is technically clearly a lot better than the Hill Farm. But I found a lot more things to enjoy in the Hill Farm than I found in the cow. So the question is, which one do I rank higher? The better film by any standard I could think of, or the film I would be more likely to rewatch and actually find things to enjoy in. And so maybe I'm just tentatively doing what I didn't expect to do 2 hours ago before I started rewatching them and put the cow on number 3 rather than the Hill Farm.
Gasp. Wow, how shocking.
Yeah, I hear you're livid.
Yeah. Greta Gerwig is so mad right now. Now, she is the biggest fan of the cow, and it's just like, how dare you? Or maybe she's really rejoicing. Maybe she's a big defender of the Hill Farm, and it has unfortunately sat through us shit talking it for so long.
Yeah,
And
Greta, just call us. You have our number. Call us.
yeah, she has our phone numbers. We have a group chat together. It's great.
Yeah, it was surprising when Greta first slipped into our DMs, but now we're kind of used to it.
And the best part of this whole thing we're saying is the fact that we said earlier that this hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah, but it is going to happen. We know it.
We just know that like Greta Gerwig in a I think in 4 days, I think that's when your episode comes out. She is going to absolutely call us up, or she's going to DM me on Twitter first, and then she's going to be like, "Hey, your podcast is great. Let me get your number so we can talk more." And I'm like, "Sure, okay. You want to talk to Christoph too?" And then it's like, "Yes, of course." And I give her your Twitter account, and you get her number, her as just like, and then we form a group chat together and we become the best of friends. And then she invites me onto the film set of her next movie, which is set in Germany. And so she's going to fly over there. We're going to hang out with you. It's going to be great.
Is Greta Gerwig even on Twitter? I think this is where
She
it might.
no, she has a secret account. Like she has a like that's like she doesn't have like a big publicity one.
I understand. Yeah, sure, that makes sense.
It does. But yeah, my number 3 is The Hill Farm. What's your number 2?
Well, obviously it's The Hill Farm. It's probably not, it probably doesn't even deserve to be number 2 after what I said, but as of right now, I would rather rewatch The Hill Farm than The Cow. So I'm putting The Hill Farm on number 2.
My number 2 is The Cow, and your number 1 is Balance. My number 1 is Balance. We all knew this from the very moment I said hello everyone and welcome to the short podcast about short films.
Yeah, it was a bit of a spoiler when I called Balance the best short film of all time. So
Yeah.
yes, obviously it's my number 1 in this lineup. It's my number 1 in any lineup. It would be my number 1 over Tango. It would be my number 1 over The Dot and the Line. It's the best film, best short film ever made.
Well, my praises aren't as strong. Like it is certainly one of the best contenders in this entire category. It's probably as of now, it is like my favorite winner in this category, though I'm curious how my rewatches of like The Old Man, The Sea, and Paperman and some of the other winners will hold up. And currently
They're
in
not as good as Balance, let me tell you that.
okay. Uh but yes, and in terms of my I'm going to say something controversial or something that you're not going to like to hear, but on my rewatch for this, it was at number 7 in my top 10 in my ranking of all the nominees, and after my rewatch, it did drop to number 9.
Boo! Boo!
Greta Gerwig is pissed right now, and she's going to let me know about it after once this episode goes up. She's going to just absolutely light up my DMs. But yeah, I'm sorry. It dropped below A Doonesbury Special and Walking. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry, all the Balance fans, and especially sorry to Christof and Wolfgang Lauenstein. And it's just like I know
And I
you.
hope you're sorry to me as well.
I'm especially sorry to you, Christoph. I thought that was implied. I think I did say I'm sorry, like right before I said that, but
You even said I'm sorry to Christoph, and then you went on with and Wolfgang Lauenstein. So you're just not sorry to Christoph Lauenstein, but you're sorry to Wolfgang Lauenstein and to me, or you
all
didn't mention me
Christophs.
in that. Yeah.
All Christophs were implied in there, including
Including
Christoph
Christoph
Waltz.
Waltz.
Yes, went to the same joke. Who he is also listening, and he is also going to be in Greta Gerwig's next film. This is going to be so funny if Greta Gerwig's next film does happen to have Christoph Waltz, though I'm not sure if they're in the same social circles. Anyway, everybody watch Balance, please. It's a
Yes.
great film. If you've been for some reason listening to this podcast and have not seen any nominees, or at least not seen any of the nominees outside of like Pixar shorts and things like that, and you're looking for somewhere to start, take Christoph's advice, watch Balance and watch The Crunch Bird and work your way in from there.
Exactly.
Or
I couldn't have said it any better.
Or if you're going to, for me, if I were to make the same recommendation in terms of like the best nominee, worst nominee, it would be The Telltale Heart and Kitbull, or maybe Logorama. Those are ones I hate for different reasons, but Telltale Heart is definitely my favorite one. As of now, there's still a few. We still have 30 years left in this to get through before I've rewatched everything. Oh my God, there's only 30 years left. Wait, that is
The end is near.
wait, actually, maybe. Oh, wait, no, I think it's like 35, but still, less than a year left of this podcast, or at least this era of this podcast. Things are going by way too fast. I am not prepared. Wow. Anyway, before we end our show, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share, Christoph, or anything you'd like to promote?
I think I'm perfectly happy. People who are listening to the show are probably knowing where to find me, and that obviously includes Greta Gerwig and Christoph Waltz. So I was just happy to be able to talk about balance with you. It's just such a great film.
Thanks. It was an honor to talk about balance with you. It's like this is a moment that we've kind of been building up to, like basically since the first episode. And so it's like it's nice to finally get here. Nice to finally talk about this one, like your favorite nominee in this category. And it's like I just had the same honor with Ronaldo recently when we talked about Sound of Sunshine, Sound of Rain, which I'm not sure if that's his favorite nominee, but it's certainly one of them. And it's just like, yeah, it's always nice to talk to people about things that they're really passionate about. And it's like it's great.
It's so you're basically saying it's all downhill from here.
Maybe.
Yeah,
But
maybe. Who knows? We might be talking about Minnie Mouse the next time I'm on your podcast.
maybe so.
And
But
we might actually be talking about Minnie Mouse with a good reason to, unlike today.
yes. Yeah, she might actually show up. Actually, I'm just looking at my top 10 again because I just had it pulled up, and it's just like of them, uh we've talked about half of them so far. So we have half of my favorite nominees done already. Okay, so maybe there's still some good episodes left in here. We haven't even gotten to the 2010s yet, which is like the best era of this category, in my opinion, at least, in terms of just the quality of the films that are nominated. There's so many good stuff. There's so much good stuff in there.
Maybe not the quality, but at least the variety of what gets nominated.
Well, true, but we've had variety in this category we there is
That's
no
true.
stop to the variety in terms of like in this category. Like that's just the joy of the entire category, at least post 60s, post 50s, I mean. But yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christoph, for coming on the show. And
Yeah.
thank you, listener, for tuning in, especially you, Greta Gerwig. This has been the short podcast about short films. Until next time, goodbye.